All right, I get it 7 o'clock. So good evening, everyone. I remind councillors and those present that your image and what you say may be broadcast live to the public. So please be mindful of your actions and your comments. You should avoid making statements that might defame or offend, and note the recording of this meeting will be retained online and in council's archive. Please turn off your mobile phones or switch to silent. Filming and photography are not permitted in the meeting. Anyone observed to be filming the meeting may be asked to leave. I now declare the meeting open at 7 a.m. A request has been received from Councillor Walsh to attend this meeting by audio-visual link in accordance with clause 6.21 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Therefore, I've moved the following procedural motion. Councillor Stanton. Oh, Councillor Stanton's online. Okay. So I'll start again. A request received from Councillors Walsh and Stanton to attend this meeting by audio-visual link in accordance with clause 6.21 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Therefore, I move a motion that they be permitted to attend. The seconded by Councillor Castles. It's all right. No, I'm just trying to remember who was on the committee. That's all.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm on the committee, yes.
Yes. No, thank you. So all those in favour, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. Carried. Got that? Yep, I can keep going though. Warm welcome to everyone in attendance and those watching along at home tonight. We've now got the advice of the country, for custodians of the land on which we live, work and play. We pay our respects to Darkingham and country and those past and present. We recognise the continued connection to these lands and waterways, extend this acknowledgement to the homelands and stories of those who call us home. Recognise our future leaders and the shared responsibility for and protect our place and people. Note there are no apologies and all the committee members are present. So I'll move on to conflicts of interest. I'm not going to go through the room. If anyone's got a conflict, please indicate. Councillor Smith.
Chair, I'll declare a significant non-pecuniary on item 2.5, planning proposed statistics, as I live in close proximity to one of the properties listed. So I note it is for noting. If it's debated, I will leave the room.
There will be some debate, but mostly not on that particular item. I don't know which one.
Okay, I'll wait and see.
Any other conflicts? All right. Thank you. And before we get into the business, I just advise the committee that I have invited Elizabeth York from the UDIA and Chris Smith, a planning consultant, to also address the meeting on the conservation plan, obviously after the department does so. And I'll move a procedural motion at the appropriate time to allow for that to happen. Okay.
Yeah, can you clarify on what those is?
Well, the report they've got an interest in.
There are many people that would have an interest in that report.
They're the ones that asked me. So, and I'm, as you'll see, Councillor Smith, I'm happy to suggest that I'm suggesting that a report come back to the next committee meeting. So I guess if there was other people who wanted to address that, look at that. So we now have the confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Happy with those? Somebody want to move? Adopted. Thank you, Councillor Milne. Seconder. Councillor Castles, thank you. Any debate on those? I'll put that. All those in favour say, raise your hand. Unanimous, thank you. Declare that carried. Okay, items resolved by exception. Obviously, the conservation plan we're going to deal with. Next item is 2.2. I've got some questions on that. 2.3, I think we've got questions on. I don't think there are any unless somebody's got a different view.
Showing them all, Chair. Yes.
So there are no matters resolved by exception. Okay, that brings us on to item 2.1, the draft central Strategic Conservation Plan, I'll hand over to the Director.
Councillors, we've got a presentation by Department of Planning staff from the state government who'll be working on the draft strategic conservation plan, and I'll just ask them to come up to the front and present to the councillor group, and then there's an opportunity for questions at the end if you'd like to ask. The matter there, the draft plan is on exhibition at the moment, and council will be making a submission. We'd intend to get a draft submission to the next meeting of the EP committee.
Is there a
Coming.
adjective? So thank you everyone for having us tonight. So I'm Liz Owen, Director of Conservation Planning and Implementation at the department, and I've got with me Tom Holden and Chelsea Blondell. So Tom and I are going to tag team on this presentation, and then also online we've got our colleague Maria Plataris. So between us, hopefully we are well placed to answer any questions you've got. I'll kick off in a sec. We do have a slide deck prepared, obviously, to give you an overview of the plan, but really happy to take any questions along the way, and also any at the end as well, if you have any. Just like to also acknowledge country, so acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're meeting on tonight, the Dark and Young people. Pay respects to elders past, present and future. So the Central Coast Strategic Conservation Plan really builds on the Central Coast Regional Plan 2041. It identifies upfront land that is suitable for development in the Central Coast and land of high biodiversity value that is not suitable for intensive development. The intention is that once approved by both New South Wales and federal ministers for environment, the plan will provide those biodiversity approvals for development in the certified land under both those laws, and would remove the need for any further biodiversity assessment under both pieces of legislation. So you can see here there's sort of three main aims to give that planning certainty and resolve the long-term land use tensions between development and biodiversity, to support streamlined delivery of housing, infrastructure and jobs while protecting the region's unique plants and animals, and provide a pathway to support Darkinjung Lauk's socio-economic, cultural and conservation objectives. We've been working really closely with Darkinjung throughout the development of the project. This is just a very broad scale map. We have a detailed interactive map put up if you have any sort of site specific questions later, but shows the area of the project. So obviously you can see the Central Coast LGA, and the coloured areas within it are what we're calling the precincts of the plan. So we have the Greater Warnervale, Great Lake Munmorah and the Somersby precincts, as well as the very small navy blue Darkinjung additional sites to the east. Some of the benefits of this strategic conservation approach, it considers the biodiversity impacts upfront in the planning approval process. And what that does is it provides planning certainty and streamlines the delivery of development by removing that need for individual site-by-site assessment. It focuses protection on the most important areas of biodiversity, and also enables the cumulative impacts of multiple developments to be considered upfront. So just a bit about the strategic framework underpinning the plan. As I said, it builds on the Central Coast Region Plan 2041. The plan includes the important land identified for new homes around Warnervale, Wadalba, Lake Munmorah and Summerland Point. Also includes new jobs for the Wyong Employment Zone, former Munmorah Power Station site and the Somersby Business Park. It also includes around 17 sites or around 230 hectares of the Darkinjung development delivery plan sites. I'm going to hand to Tom now to take you through a bit more detail about the plan's mapping and conservation outcomes, and then I'll jump back in to talk you through the planning controls and the public exhibition.
So the plan proposes two categories of land in the 3,000 hectares that it covers. The first category is proposed urban certified, both certified urban capable land. That's the land shown here in pink. That's the example. That land is the land where that would have upfront state and federal biodiversity approvals for it delivered under the plan. The second category of land is proposed non-certified land, and that's a land that would not be suitable for more intensive development under the plan. And on this land, current land uses can continue, although native vegetation clearing will be restricted. So avoiding impact from development is one of the key requirements of both state and federal biodiversity laws, and it's a key priority of those laws, even with these strategic projects. We develop criteria to determine the land that is proposed to be non-certified and therefore the land of high biodiversity value that isn't suitable for more intensive development. And we did this to ensure we met the requirements of both state and federal biodiversity laws, and also to ensure we were making transparent and consistent decisions across the plans area. The criteria prioritised avoiding impacts to biodiversity values of significant importance to the Central Coast, particularly serious and irreversible impacts. It focused on maintaining regional biodiversity corridors and the larger and better quality patches of habitat for threatened species. And it also looked at and considered building on the existing conservation zoning and reserves adjacent to the plans area, so outside the plans area, so that the habitat in the non-certified land is better connected to those areas. This is a snapshot of the biodiversity values that were assessed in the plans area. The assessment was undertaken in line with state and federal biodiversity laws by accredited assessors that we engaged to do that work. It was used to determine the proposed certified and non-certified land and assess the impacts of the development in the certified land on native vegetation and threatened species and ecological communities. The assessment was also used to inform the plan's conservation program, including the offsets and other measures that we're proposing to address the impacts. The details of the assessment are provided in what's called the Strategic Central Coast Assessment Report, and that's been released along with the plan for public comment. The assessment was informed by a significant amount of biodiversity surveys conducted over several years. We managed to survey about 60% of the plans area, so about 1,800 hectares of land. These are the areas where landholders provided access for those surveys to be conducted. The surveys were used to map native vegetation and biodiversity values in the plans area. And for the land that we weren't able to access, we used existing native vegetation mapping, which is of high quality for the Central Coast, and used existing species records to map where species habitat would occur. So the plan will develop a conservation program to address the impacts of the development in the proposed certified urban capable land. And this will take a strategic approach that focuses on the most important areas in the landscape that support long-term biodiversity outcomes. And it's been developed in line with the avoid, mitigate and offset hierarchy under federal and state biodiversity laws. Just a quick snapshot of the conservation program, what it will deliver. It'll deliver around 1,200 hectares of high biodiversity value land that's been avoided from impacts, and that and restricted from development, and that includes no impacts to critically endangered orchids that are found on the Central Coast. Over 3,900 hectares of land protected and managed in conservation in perpetuity across the Central Coast focused really on the Central Coast local government area. And as part of this, we're aiming to secure at least 700 hectares of that in the first 5 years of the plans in conservation.
Sorry, just on that issue, how are you going to conserve the land?
So that will be conserved through a range. Yeah, we do actually.
Wait till you get to it then.
I'm just trying to see if we do have that slide. No, we don't. It will be through a range of mechanisms, voluntary conservation agreements. So we're looking to establish biodiversity stewardship agreements as much as possible. there's a range of conservation other options in place.
We're
Where
not going to acquire the land for any, not going to have a public acquisition.
there may be some purchase of land as well as part of the conservation program. We're really looking to purchase land on large sites where that would deliver a really significant contribution to the offsets that we need. So we're looking to do that in a targeted, strategic way. But we obviously look to do that on a voluntary basis initially. But the plan also does propose potential compulsory acquisition as well. But we haven't yet identified those.
And I think important to note, those 700 hectares that we're hoping to secure in the first 5 years, we already have agreement from Darkinjung about that scale of area of their land as well that they're setting aside for conservation. So we're working within the department to facilitate them establishing biodiversity stewardship agreements on that land. So that'll be a really good start to sort of securing that conservation land.
We're also working with ESO, the Save Our Species program, so New South Wales Secures Save Our Species program and the local land services to develop some habitat restoration programs focused on swift parrot, red honeyeater, and a couple of other key species. We really want to build on the work that others are doing rather than run our own sort of game here. So that's why we're working closely with both those organisations. So we've got offset targets in the plan for each of the threatened species and ecological communities that we're impacting, and we've identified some focus areas where we want to prioritise the delivery of those offset targets so that the biodiversity outcomes, so that the delivery of the offsets are done in a strategic way. We don't want to end up with sort of salt and pepper offsets scattered across the whole landscape. We want to consolidate into the right areas where we can maximise biodiversity outcomes. These are the focus areas here. They're an initial start. They'll be developed and continue to be refined over time. But that's our starting point for having conversations with landholders about voluntary stewardship agreements and things like that to secure those offsets. As Liz said, we've been working closely with Darkinjung Local Aboriginal Land Council, and we've agreed with them for them to include 4 sites in the draft plan as offset sites. That's subject to further agreement and final agreement with them, with the DELAC board. But they have agreed at this stage to investigate those sites, and these are the areas are shown in purple here, to investigate those sites for potential biodiversity stewardship agreements. They total about 700 hectares of land, and they're in the impacts that are happening. And we're working closely with the New South Wales TQ to further investigate the potential of those sites as biodiversity stewardship agreements.
Can I, through you, Chair, can I just ask quickly, the sites that you're mentioning, I'm finding it a bit hard to kind of see the map sort of from here. So what are there which specific geographical areas or approximate areas are we talking about with this? I'm just interested to know, that's all.
Yeah.
You able to tell me a bit more?
Yeah, so the 4 sites are the ones highlighted purple.
Yeah.
They're all of them are at least 100 hectares in size.
Okay. Yeah.
This one in the middle. This one in the middle is over 200 hectares in size, in and around the Charm Haven area.
Oh yeah.
This one's down at Nora Head.
Oh yeah.
This one's up at Lake Munmora between two conservation reserves. And then this one's at Summersby, just to the east of the Summersby business park.
Oh yes.
Eastern side of the M1.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was just trying to work out where they were, that's all. Thank you.
Sorry, question. So if your conservation strategy goes through as is, those offsets might not be locked in.
Correct. Yeah.
So what's the
So
guarantee?
within strategic processes, so we put in place this plan and we submit this to the federal and New South Wales environment ministers for their approval. And it basically is a series of long-term commitments for us to deliver over the life of the project. Our commitment is always that we want the conservation to come ahead as a whole. But that doesn't mean that it needs to happen it has to come in advance of this bit. It needs to outcomes are being considered for conservation in advance of development impacts over the life of the project.
But sorry, wasn't the answer to my question that those offsets would not be guaranteed?
So it's to establish a biodiversity stewardship agreement is quite a lengthy process. So the steps that we're now taking is New South Wales TQ, the credit supplier task force, are doing an initial sort of feasibility or based assessment of the sites to confirm that they are feasible for a biodiversity stewardship agreement. And then once that's completed, they undertake detailed site surveys, and that's to establish, you know, what species, what ecological communities are on the sites. All of that process typically does take sort of 1 to 2 years. So yeah, it may well be that we are in the sort of timeline of implementing the plan before that biodiversity stewardship agreement is formally secured and those credits are retired. But there's that commitment that even if those ones didn't go ahead for whatever reason, we would have the obligation to secure them through other conservation lands.
Right, but sorry, I'm just not understanding because you said this was based on many years survey work, but you're saying
Yeah.
that there's not sufficient survey work to guarantee that.
Yeah, we focused the survey on the impact assessment, so the development areas. So this additional survey work is in the potential conservation lands. And it's also at a like more granular scale required to establish a biodiversity stewardship agreement. So you have to do plot surveys for every single species and ecological community that might be potential on that site. So it does take a lot.
So,
Councillor McNamara.
Through your chair, was the employment land strategy put over the top of all this, and where our employment land strategy is going and those sites, are they, you know, over the top of this, or is that something we have to do?
I mean, certainly the starting point for the areas that we've included in the plan for assessment and potential development is the Central Coast Regional Plan 2041. So
No,
we've included aligns with the regionally significant growth areas and growth precincts identified in that plan. Not all of them, but the ones focused around Greater Lake Mora, Greater Watervale and Summersby.
that's where all our employment lands are. So maybe to the director, do you know, because the regional plan been done a long time ago, we're only just doing the employment land strategy now. Is that something we should be doing?
Ask Manager Strategic Planning to answer that.
Through you, Chair, some of the areas it does line up. So for Summersby, for the one employment zone, Bushell's Ridge, through Charm Haven and up to Lake Mulmore, a lot of those areas are included. So that's what we're reviewing as well.
Does that mean we need to now change employment land strategy based on whatever this happens?
It just depends, because some of the land in the employment land strategy is already zoned as well. Some of it's just zoned but constrained, or zoned but unserviced. So we'll have.
So zoning doesn't change in this, it's just the constraints of that zone?
Correct. We don't apply new zoning through the plan.
And if the constraints are new, let's say, and a block of employment land gets constrained by, I don't know, 50%, what's the outcome there? That there's just no one, you can't use the constrained land. What happens to the owner of that land that was, I suppose, thinking that they're going to use 100% of that land?
I think the areas do broadly align. Like what we can commit to doing is do that detailed review and like overlay both the layers and provide that information appropriate.
I was going to say, have you got, can you provide a map that actually, like if you're saying this, with the zoning map.
Yes, we do have that. So the interactive map, which is publicly available, you can see the different layers from our plan, but also can see zoning information. So that information is all publicly available for everyone to look at.
Just upon that point, I've tried to get the plan, I can't get it.
On the interactive map?
Yep.
Oh.
It clearly needs a whole heap of data, and even on the council system, I can't get it. I can't get it on a 5G file. So you need to do something to make that easier to access.
Yeah, maybe we can.
Specifically down to the sites.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The
Levels.
Safari browser, or is it a different browser?
We're happy to give a demo.
Currently, the that will work on a Chrome or an Edge. We've just put out comments.
Oh, kidding.
Okay.
We're exploring that one. We hope to have that resolved.
I mean, anyone who's got an Apple device can't get it.
Through Google Chrome,
That is totally unacceptable.
Yeah, that's something we hadn't realised.
Yeah. That's just
was
come
occurring.
through.
It's just come to our attention yesterday.
So we'll get that resolved. But Google Chrome does work on an iPhone, so we can help you with that. So we're happy to do a demonstration at the end of the slides.
Thank you.
Be helpful.
Yes.
Okay, keep going, sorry.
The Summersby Business Park buying employment zone and other employment areas that were identified in the Central Coast Regional Plan 2041. They're all in this plan, and this plan resolves biodiversity issues for those areas of land. So there would be feedback back into the employment stream. We've shared the footprints with Central Coast Council. We took them through them probably 6 months ago, I'd say. So council should be across the footprints and how everything is looking. So we're looking to protect, as we've said, there's a commitment in the plan to protect all critically endangered orchids. And so to give effect to this, some landholders within the plan area must have final surveys done for their land prior to development. These surveys are required for 3 critically endangered orchid species and a critically endangered species called Rhodamnia rubescens. And the requirements in place over land that we have not been able to access for surveys to date because landholders refused to access originally in the original round of letters that were now quite a few years ago now. And it's needed because the Central Coast is really important to the survival of these species in New South Wales. So we've contacted all those relevant landholders recently through 2 rounds of letters, and we've offered to undertake those surveys free of charge at this stage for this current survey season. So our ecologists are out there doing surveys now. And for the landholders who didn't take that offer up, they will be required to do these surveys prior to development as part of the on the plan. If any of these 4 species are found during those surveys, development will be restricted in that location with a small buffer around where the orchid is found.
Sorry, can I ask, was council one of the landholders that restricted access or refused access at any point?
No, not that. No, we got.
So I know they previously did. They haven't in process.
Yeah, we've got access. We've had access to council land.
And is one spring summer season sufficient to?
It is to meet the regulatory requirements.
The requirements, but not necessarily to capture of orchids.
Well, the regulatory requirement should reflect that.
We are
ability to
serving.
protect the-
We are surveying at different times for each of the orchids, depending on when they've flowered. So we're actually currently surveying for 2 of the 3 orchids, but not the 3rd yet because that will flower later. So we do wait for the reference site orchid to flower in line with the guidelines and then survey at that time in like a tight 2-week period to make sure that we have the best chance of the orchids if they are there.
And did it incorporate external data?
From other consultants, yes. Yeah, our team has done that. They've used all available data for the area.
The surveys were conducted over the last 2 weeks, and that was peak flowering season for 2 of those orchids. So it should have been completed well.
It's also like they are very rare in the landscape, as you know. So it's only a very small percentage of sites that we expect to find an orchid. So currently in those 2-week surveys we've done, I think it's 80 something sites, and we found one so far. So it is quite rare that they're being found.
Question or statement, I suppose. 15 years ago, I was on Wyong Council. This came up with the Wyong orchid. What we found back then, it really wasn't here. This was the southern end of where it is. It was all the way up in the Hunter Valley. You're talking about it being rare here.
Yeah.
But back then I remember reports that it was, maybe here a little bit, but it was all the way up in Hunter Valley. Your comment there was that it was rare here, and that's why it should be saved. I mean, does that still stand?
It does. We're taking our advice from our ecological consultants, but the Wyong sun orchid is only there's a type of sun orchid. There's lots of types of sun orchid, and a lot of them occur elsewhere. There's a particular type that's only found in the Central Coast that's critically endangered, and that's one of the ones where they're focusing on.
I don't think that's correct, but it'd be interesting.
Keep going.
So the plan includes around 230 hectares of land owned by Duck and Jung Local Aboriginal Land Council. That's included in their development delivery plan. And the activation of land in their delivery plan is important and a key basis from which the LAUC aims to achieve socio-economic outcome, cultural outcome for Aboriginal people on the Central Coast. Much of the rest of LAUC's land, as you're aware, they own a lot of land on the Central Coast. Much of the rest of that land is expected to never be developed and represent an expansive conservation estate that's important for the region's biodiversity values in the long term. So we sort of see the plan as providing an effective pathway to support the LAUC delivering objectives in its community land and business plan.
Councillor Walsh just has a question.
Thank you. Yes. Sorry, Councillor Walsh. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. We've moved past where I wanted to ask the question about, but I heard Councillor McNamara comment that he didn't think the information that was being provided was very particularly about or quite specifically about the Wyong sun orchid was correct. So I would just like to ask Councillor McNamara if he could expand on his thinking there, and if we could hear back from the presenter regarding his response. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So back in, I think it was, somebody thought that there was a Wyong sun orchid up at Bruce Crescent at Halloran. They did studies at the time. They agreed that it was there, but part of that study showed that this is the southern portion where it's found, and it's found all the way up into the Hunter Valley. So that was a report back in 2010, and that section in Bruce Crescent alongside Sparks Road was fenced off. I think there was also another section over in Arizona Road at Charmhaven as well, and they were fenced off. But the report that came back, as I say, must have been about 2011, 2012, suggested that that was the southern part of where it's all found. And it wasn't a rare, it might have been rare just in that southern part, the northern part of Wyong Shire at that stage.
Can we come back?
I guess I was just going to clarify the efforts that we're making on the orchids is because of their endangered. So it's their status in that listing. So it's not necessarily around where it is found in the landscape. It's that it's listed under the regulations as critically endangered. So that's why we take.
So you're 1 or 1,000.
Still critically endangered, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Clarifies that. Thank you.
So as part of the implementation of the plan, we're establishing an assurance and implementation framework. And that really comprises governance arrangements, a monitoring, evaluation, reporting and adaptive improvement program, and importantly, funding arrangements to ensure we can fund the implementation of the plan into the long term. That the details of all of that are in the draft plan. Might just jump to the funding slide. So in relation to funding, we're using the Housing and Productivity Contributions Framework, which is established under the Environmental Assessment Act. And essentially how this works is that developers who wish to develop their land within the urban certified land will need to pay a contribution, a biodiversity contribution. That money will go to the Department of Planning, who will then use that money to fund the implementation of the conservation program and all the offsets needed to address the impacts of that development. So landholders who don't wish to develop their land, put houses and infrastructure on it, won't need to pay that contribution. So it'll just be triggered when you go to develop your land for houses.
That's for you, Camilla.
Just a quick question, the contributions, same amount that they've always paid, or under this program, there'll be an increase?
So the specific biodiversity levy is proposed to be 9,500 per new dwelling lot. So those rates are put in the plan. So it is
That's on top of the SIG, I assume.
Yeah, so it is.
Sorry, that's the state infrastructure contribution.
Yes. Yeah.
Councillors who don't know that.
So it's a new levy proposed under the
And
HZ.
I assume your proposition is that that'll save them some costs of studies, and so
Yeah. So
it's off.
it saves on kind of two counts. It saves all of the assessment work that they need to do, which we've now undertaken on their behalf, and then also saves the offsetting cost that if they did have biodiversity on their land, that they would have to offset. So we're taking that liability on behalf of those landowners, and then charging a flat rate levy no matter what the biodiversity is on their site, whether it is a lot or not a lot. It's just a flat levy charged for the development.
Okay, thank you. Keep going. Yep.
Back to me.
Thank you.
Look, I've got a number of slides on the planning controls, but I'm cognizant of time, so I'll jump through reasonably quickly, but just stop me at any time.
This is the major item on the agenda tonight, so don't rush through.
All the time you like. In order to implement the plan, we're proposing a number of development controls. So they will be implemented through Chapter 13 of the Biodiversity and Conservation SEP. If anyone is aware of the existing Cumberland Plain Conservation Plan in southwest Sydney, that was the first strategic biodiversity conservation planning project under the Biodiversity Conservation Act. So these controls are very similar to those. We're applying a similar approach, and the new maps through those controls will identify controls in the certified urban capable land and the non-certified land.
How do people know that that's what they'll? So I'm talking more about the non-certified land, right?
Yeah.
There's something that's been in the family for 20, 30 years. How do they know that they're now can no longer do anything with that land?
Yeah, so there's, I guess, requirements in the controls that kind of stipulate what is required prior to a development consent. So our intention is that through this public exhibition process, everyone will be, made aware of the new controls. But if they were to lodge a DA or to, interact with council, then they would become aware of those controls.
I understand that, but it's more the person who's, got basically a farmland or something like that. And they just do some clearing, and then all of a sudden they're prosecuted because they didn't know that they couldn't do some clearing.
Yeah. Maria, do you want to jump in?
Most landholders know they can't do clearing without approval.
Depends on the level of control.
To talk about how landowners are being made aware of the new clearing restrictions.
So these are still drafts. So this is the first opportunity for landholders to provide become aware of the information, the proposed changes, and to make submissions. And then as part of finalisation of the SEP changes, we would be developing a lot of collateral to inform landholders of the changes that would affect their land. And we would also develop, as we have done with the CPCP, specific material for rural landholders who want to, undertake existing activities. So there is a sort of a template for that we've already implemented through the Cumberland Plain Conservation Plan.
So the planning controls are really aimed at avoiding and minimising impacts in the non-certified land, and then also they do require consent for any clearing of native vegetation on that non-certified land. They also require that any development classified as essential infrastructure has to be consistent with the infrastructure guidelines that we're preparing so that it's part of and consistent with the plan. This is just a bit more detail about the development controls, and we've provided these slides, so be for you to come back with any more detailed questions as well. But the key thing to note here is that subdivision on non-certified land will be restricted. And as I said, we're preparing infrastructure guidelines for essential infrastructure provisions. So Commitment 8 of the Central Coast Plan requires that the development of mitigation measures guidelines that will be referenced in the set. So what this means is that consent will not be granted for development on certified land unless it's in line with these mitigation measures. So the consent authority has considered whether it's consistent with those mitigation measures. That includes an asset protection zone located on the certified land, not on the non-certified land. And there's also a number of special provisions for 4 critically endangered species, those ones that we're surveying for now.
Just Mr. Chair, in preparation, the mitigation measures guideline. Any idea on timeframes? There's been a number of landowners been waiting years for this study.
Yeah. So we have actually just today, I think it was, we've added an additional fact sheet to the website, which is really detailed. It's a technical fact sheet. We're going to reach out to council tomorrow to loop you guys in on this, which just provides a bit more detail of basically the intent of what the guidelines will have and some detailed example measures. So I think we can direct anyone who's got questions about what they might look like to that, and it's about a 20-page document. So I'm happy to talk anyone through the detail of that, but it should give out a really good idea of what will come through. So that will be finalised at the time of the final plan. So we're intending that will happen next year, but hopefully that detailed technical fact sheet will give all the information needed.
Just to pick up on your second dot point, the asset protection side. So you've got under this plan, there's certified land, there's non-certified land, and then there's other land that is not in the plan.
Yeah.
So what about an asset protection zone on other land?
So any development that happens outside of the certified or non-certified land is just as if the plan doesn't exist. It goes through the standard, site by site.
Your dot point says it's got to be wholly located on certified.
Yeah, the asset protection zones, yes.
What about land is certified, but asset protection land is on the other land? That wouldn't be consistent with what you're saying, yet it doesn't seem to be logically why you would exclude that.
Are you talking about if a landowner owns part in the plan?
It might be the landowner, it might be the adjoining landowner that's done a deal with.
Can I jump in there?
No, jump in. I haven't considered that scenario.
The intent of the provision is to prevent people from putting asset protection zones on the non-certified land.
That's what I assumed.
Which is supposed to be avoided from development. So not creeping onto non-certified land, but ensuring that they account for their APZs on the developable land.
So it's poorly worded at that point.
I'll take that on notice, and I'll just look at how we've communicated that elsewhere as well, if that's not clear.
Authority as council to determine if that was appropriate that an APZ was on adjacent land.
Well, it shouldn't be variable either. Is a requirement or not a requirement? Isn't the response to Councillor Aiton's question that the layout of the development needs to be repositioned somehow?
Which would be, so we put in place the planning controls, but obviously consent authority is responsible for applying them. So we work really closely with council to make sure that that will be applied.
What it should simply say is that asset protection zone cannot be on non-certified land.
Yes. Yeah, that's a much simpler way of wording it.
Good, thank you.
I'll send you. Big day.
So just about the local planning direction for strategic conservation planning. So to clarify that the plan itself will not be changing the underlying zoning of any of the land. It will be updated to apply to non-certified land in the same way that the Western Sydney Strategic Conservation Plan has applied avoided land, which requires a planning proposal authority to be satisfied that it protects or enhances a range of biodiversity factors. So in the non-certified land, the result of this means that if it is to be rezoned, it will be rezoned either C2 or RE1, but that would only happen at the time that development of, the remainder of that site is going ahead and happening for development, because there are obviously large sites which have both certified and non-certified land on them, where some of the land will be suitable for more intensive development and some land will not be. Just to wrap up a bit about our exhibition process. So we are now on exhibition for 6 weeks. So we're now in week 2 today. We've been out for a week. There's a number of documents on exhibition, including the draft plan, the draft commitment actions, the assessment report, and the explanation of intended effect, which outlines the intent of the planning controls. We've also got listed there a fact sheet on the contributions framework, and also, as I mentioned, we've just added today an additional fact sheet about the mitigation measures. In terms of how we are engaging with the community, so we've got a public webinar booked for this Thursday, which anyone can dial into and book on the website to join. A recording of that webinar will also be made available on our website afterwards if anyone misses that time. There's also a dedicated response for any landowner or any stakeholder within the Central Coast. So they can email us via a mailbox inquiry and get back a dedicated response. This is really useful for landowners who might just want to know, look, how does this apply to my land? Or, I don't understand something about the interactive map. So we can get back to them really personally. If they give us their address, we can get back to them specifically about their site. We can send screenshots. We can do all of that. Alternatively, if they prefer a phone call, they can book in a time to talk with one of our team. So it's kind of like just booking in a telehealth appointment. There's a form where they can book a time, and one of our team will be available to answer any questions that they've got on their property or about the plan in general. So those are really kind of the main landowner communication options. We've also got the interactive map, which we can demo at the end if you like. And then obviously the formal submission process, which I'll speak to in a minute.
So just before you move on, so how do the landowners know those 4 approaches that are available to them?
Yes. So we've sent out all of our comms. So all of our existing stakeholders, we have engaged with a large number of landowners to date through like the survey, assessment process that we've been in touch with a large number, also through contacts with York, through Central Coast Council, through Darkinjung. So yeah, we've definitely notified everyone that we have contacts for and have encouraged everyone to share and circulate that information more broadly. We've also briefed the state and federal MPs and provided information for them to include in their constituent newsletters.
Statutory advertising requirements.
Yes, public notices in the newspapers. Yeah.
Director Nichols, is council promoting the opportunity to encourage people for feedback?
We haven't at this stage.
Can council consider that?
Yes, we can consider that. Yep.
We're also doing some targeted, tailored stakeholder engagement. So we have 2 Aboriginal community forums that are scheduled for this Friday and next Tuesday, which we're working with a local Aboriginal engagement consultancy to spread the word for that. And we have some attendees locked in, but still kind of building some numbers for that. So we're working closely with Barang and Darkinjung as well to try and spread the word to get more attendance at those. And then we also have 2 environment group stakeholder forums, which are invite only, but for all of the environment groups in the area who have an interest in the plan are being invited to in-person workshops to also share their views. In terms of large landowners, we have gone through Elizabeth York and her team, and we've identified about 20 large landowners or developers in the plan area who we're meeting one-on-one and booking in a time to really talk through their site-specific questions. And, if they have development proposals that may or may not align with the plan, we can work through with them what the options are from here.
Yes.
Thank you. Almost.
No, go. Yeah, but go ahead, that's fine.
So I'm just trying to get my head around the overall picture. So certified areas, and use language that you probably won't like, get trashed. The non-certified areas, it's not clear to me what changes on them to, I don't like using the term offset because the offset is specific to a development, but what increases the guarantee of biodiversity protection on the non-certified land when, I know you mentioned the SEP, but the SEP largely had aspirational language. It's not any guarantee of biodiversity, of increased biodiversity protection on those lands.
Yeah, so I guess they're twofold. So firstly, the non-certified land, the planning controls will very strictly limit development. So it, like Maria can probably jump in and add more detail, but any development proposal does require, Maria, do you want to just jump in? You're probably a better place to explain it.
So for the non-certified areas, development consent will be required for clearing of native vegetation. So any proposed development that involves clearing of native vegetation or any proposal just to clear native vegetation without any additional development would now require consent. So then the objectives and the considerations in that Chapter 13 that currently apply to the Cumberland Plain would also apply here, plus some additional things to consider, things such as the critically endangered species that we spoke about earlier. So the consent authority, so council, would assess the proposal against those objectives and those development controls and form an opinion on whether or not it should, approve, refuse, condition the development accordingly. So that's what changes, this new requirement that you would need to get consent.
I think for reference, the Central Coast, the CPCP example of Western Sydney is useful. So we've put in place very similar controls, and there has been no development in the non-certified land in Western Sydney aside from the essential infrastructure. So the controls are actually incredibly strict. It does require that the consent authority applies them. So it has been applied that way in Western Sydney across the 8 local councils in Western Sydney. We've been working really closely with Central Coast Council throughout the length of the whole project. So, and we've briefed them on the controls prior to this exhibition. So I would imagine that they will have such a strict application here.
Okay, and is the consent authority a specific authority, or does it still go through the different layers of panels, depending on the development proposed?
Yeah, so that, you go, Maria.
It would be the same. The consent authority would be, so we don't change who the consent authority is, so that the entire system of what triggers what type of, planning approval pathway, as it's called, we don't change that. We just require development consent for the clearing of native vegetation. So if it's just a standard local development, it'll be council. If it triggers a local planning panel for any other reason, depending on the nature of the development, then it would still go to the local planning panel, but the same rules would apply to them exercising the functions of the consent authority.
I will actually come back, get it loaded live if we can work that out with the laptops in a second, and then we'll be able to demo for you how it works.
While you're waiting for that, question about the impact this may have on the employment lands strategy and the number of jobs that we're looking to provide, let's call it 70,000 in the next 10 years or something. Has anybody looked at the impact that this may have on those employment lands, and is that target still achievable through this process?
Yeah. So our plan has estimated that it will facilitate around 30,000 new jobs. So I assume that's the subset of your broader plan, but we could compare those numbers if we look at how
It
you
would be good if you could.
calculated those numbers. Yeah, we should do that and come back to you.
Thank you.
So I'll just wrap up I know the slide's not there, but you need it to look at the not so pretty picture. So there's 3 ways that we are receiving submissions, formal submissions. So obviously through the New South Wales planning portal. We're also able to receive any submissions through the email address to our team, or if people prefer to make a verbal submission, they can book in a time to speak with our team members and we can take a verbal submission.
Looks like the map's up.
Do it. So I don't know. Who's going to drive? You're driving? Wonderful. Chelsea's going to drive.
Bring up Mountain Road.
Do you want to, does someone want to nominate
Mountain Road, Warrnambool.
address? There you go. I knew this.
No, Sparks Road. Alleran.
Yeah, so you can see here you can put in any address or a lot if you prefer, and it drills down to the site-specific mapping for that lot. It also comes up with a pop-up box with a sort of summary of the site information.
Good.
And you can...
Is that by lot?
In and out, yeah, by lot, yeah. So the lot that is coming up for 143 Sparks Road is the one in blue. So you can see that lot, and then that pop-up box is for that specific lot. Yep. Then you can obviously zoom back out and see like a much broader landscape scale view for a suburb or, you know, the broader region.
What's our airport look like these days then?
Yeah, just to the west there.
Bit left there.
It looks like it's not having an air show. That's what it looks like.
There's also some additional layers. I don't know if you want to demo how to turn on the zoning layer. It's probably the
this left-hand panel on the side here you can open up, and we've included additional layers around biodiversity values, so native vegetation, threatened ecological communities listed under the EPBC and the BC Act. We've got surveys, efforts, so flora, fauna surveys and native vegetation plots have been done. And then we've also got land zoning, and you can turn that on and see the land. And there's a little legend that you can open up, and that shows the land zoning type against that. You can also change the transparency on those layers. So if you wanted to see the land zoning underneath, you can also turn it on and off to give you a better view as well. And those colours for those main layers are customisable for anyone with accessibility issues as well. They can change the style of themselves.
It is fairly intuitive, like it's pretty easy for people to type in their address and kind of have a fiddle around. But as I said, we're also happy to book in a call with anyone or, you know, send screenshots over email or through post if anyone is having issues accessing the interactive map. Any questions on the interactive wrapper? I might just wrap up with time frames. So just in terms of key milestones and next steps. So as we said before, we're finalising our spring surveys currently for those 4 critically endangered species, and we're also in the public observation period, which closes on 11th of November. We've already agreed with Council that if required, we're happy to receive their submission in draft pending formal approval after the date if required. So hopefully that will address a bit more time for you guys if needed. Following close of exhibition, we will consider all of the submissions, finalise the statutory documents late this year, early next year, and then intend to submit the package to both Environment Ministers for approval mid next year.
So just coming back to the time frame for our submission. So while it's a matter for the committee to decide tonight, I'm hoping that we'll get us the draft submission to our next committee meeting, which is early November. But then our council meeting is about the 18th or something of November. No, it's earlier in November. But then that would then be adopted at the council meeting or changed. Does that work? Because that's a bit after your time frame.
Yeah, so we're closing on 11th of November. Would it be possible for you to submit the draft and then update with the final? Is that appropriate?
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, so councillors, we could have a draft submission that will come to the committee here next month in November, and then
I think it's Melbourne Cup Day.
Good. And then we'll be able to provide that draft to the department and then get it put into council for adoption later in the month and then confirm it for the department when council are formally resolved.
Thank you.
That was it.
Any more questions from?
Questions?
It's really interesting. Thank you.
No, we've got more speakers yet. All right, thank you.
Thanks so much.
I'll move a procedural motion that we suspend standing orders, allow presentations, brief presentations by Elizabeth York from UDI and Chris Smith, planning consultant. Doesn't need a seconder, so I'll just, no debate because it's procedure, so I just put that. All those in favour? Councillor Castles, Smith?
And we get their hands up.
No. Councillor Crowley and Councillor Stanton have their hands up. But Councillor Castles, you for or against?
So just repeat again what we're doing.
Suspending standing orders so we can hear from Elizabeth York from UDI and Chris Smith from planning consultant.
Oh, okay. Well,
Sharon already.
Yes, I know. I'm just trying to clarify the vote, that's all. Councillor Smith, I think, is against it, so that's fine.
I'll be dissenting.
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, I'm quite happy to hear.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. So I'll declare that carried. Councillors, those against, Councillor Smith? Yes, thank you. So I'll declare that carried with Councillor Merlin, Councillor Eaton, Councillor Stance, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Castles in favour and Councillor Smith against. All right, Elizabeth, you're up first.
So Walsh got a hand up.
Oh, did I not get Councillor Walsh? Sorry. Sorry, I apologise. Quick.
I actually put my hand up and I do apologise. It's very noisy here. I actually put my hand up thinking that we were agreeing to accept the presentation and essentially move on to the next time. I actually wasn't agreeing to necessarily listening to the next speakers. So you might want to put that again. I don't know.
Well, if you want to be against it, I'm happy to have you recorded as against.
I am interested in hearing from a broader base of speakers than are just here tonight, and would like to know if that's going to be possible at some point.
Next.
Yeah, sure.
Next.
When?
I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. Might have to have a separate session.
Clarify, Chair, because
That
apparently
might have been a yes or no answer, Councillor Eaton.
No, well,
are we going to be able to hear from other speakers?
Sure. Yeah, well, I'm happy to hear from other speakers, but it won't be tonight. I'm not sure it'll be the next meeting, so we might have to.
No, I never said tonight. I actually said I know
No.
not tonight.
No. So that's what I'm trying to.
Are we going to? Right.
I'm trying to explain. I suppose what I'm thinking is that we may need a special meeting to do that. And I'm happy to convene that if that's the will of the committee. So that would then form part of whatever motion is moved later on in terms of this report.
Okay, then let's do it and form that motion later on.
Yep. Okay. So go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you. And thank you to Chair for inviting me to come and speak tonight. Actually, I won't take much of your time because I don't have a whole lot to say just yet, noting that the plan is still on exhibition. So UDIA has not formally, we will put in a pending input from our members who have something to say about it. So we're looking at it. But look, as a big picture and as a policy position, UDIA is very, very supportive of a strategic conservation planning approach to resolving biodiversity issues on a parcel of land, or call it biocertification, whichever approach you take.
Can you speak up a bit, Elizabeth? I know there's no microphone, unfortunately.
I just want to make the broader point that resolving biodiversity challenges on a site, whether it's on the Central Coast, in the Hunter, in Western Sydney, anywhere in New South Wales, has become, in the regions, probably the primary challenge to getting a development approval. The system is extraordinarily complicated, involves a lot of time, a lot of surveys, a lot of money, and a lot of, conversations, negotiation with the consent authorities about what is possible on the site. And it's a very, very difficult process to go through, and involves a lot of uncertainty for the proponent. So as a general comment, trying to get these things resolved as early as possible in the process, our preference. So certification, biocertification is great. This particular plan, congratulations to the Department of Planning for delivering it. I know it's been a long, long time in coming. I think it's been about 7 years. And that's, I think, reflective of there's been some stops and starts and, sort of the availability of funding to actually get it done. This is a huge undertaking by New South Wales government for the Central Coast. So this is a big win, presumably, for the Central Coast if we can get this over the line. So we're really, really hopeful that we're confident that the quality of the assessment is good. We're just waiting to hear back from particular landowners as to whether the outcomes sort of work for their site, but very, very open, very, very grateful to the department for the willingness to sit down with all landowners and try to get a workable solution on their site. So that's really the big picture I just wanted to leave with you all. On a broader, I guess, sort of statement on that issue of biodiversity assessment, and the point has been made here, if your site is not included in this plan, let's assume that it gets over the line and gets added, sometime next year. If your plan's not included, then you still have to go through all the same processes under the Biodiversity Conservation Act and working with council to try to get an outcome on your site. Heaps of uncertainty in that whole process. There is a pathway to try to get your site certified earlier in the process. It's called standard biocertification, or you could just sort of go down the regular sort of pathway and do a BDAR sort of at DA stage where all that's required. I would make the point that certification is not a requirement, and certification actually is a decision that's made by the proponent. So there are a few options that are laid out for the developer. You can't force a developer to go down the certification pathway, but UDIA really encourages people to try to do that. The problem with the standard certification pathway right now is it doesn't work very well for most sites for a lot of reasons that have to do mostly with process, about uncertainty about roles. There's different timeframes. There's just a bit of a kind of a hamster wheel that kind of gets involved between DQ and the consent authority and the proponent and just all of this, and nobody knows what questions to answer when, and it doesn't really work very well. UDIA has a big priority on trying to get that standard certification process to work better. And the Department of Planning and the Department of DQ are both very interested in making that work. And so we're having some discussions with them about potentially some legislation on broader BC Act reforms that they're working on right now, about maybe including some improvements to the certification process in that next year. So those are good news stories, right? So this is fantastic that we've got this investment on the Central Coast. So I'm really, really hopeful that it's going to resolve some of these longstanding issues that we've had for some of these really major sites.
Okay, thank you. Questions? No? Okay, Chris, you're up.
Thank you, Chair and councillors, for the opportunity to speak. I speak as a local town planning consultant and in consultation with industry colleagues express both praise and concern for the draft conservation plan. Challenges with biodiversity matters is a key and frustrating matter for many landowners and applicants, and partly responsible for a number of the current Land Environment Court cases. It is hoped that the draft conservation plan will bring some clarity and certainty to this often contentious issue. However, the devil is in the detail. I've prepared a few slides to highlight impacts of the draft conservation plan using Wadalba South Urban Release Area as the case example. Using the department's interactive maps on figure 1, I've overlaid the zoning and proposed areas for certification and non-certification land. The areas outlined in the red dotted lines represent zoned residential land but excluded from certification. I suspect this land is the result of discussions between council staff and the conservation team. Some of the areas outlined in red dots certainly reflect the ecological contentions raised in current Land Environment Court matters. One of the key contentions raised by council experts is the potential for negative impacts upon threatened species such as the swift parrot and squirrel glider. Slide 2, please. Figure 2 is an extract from the National Recovery Plan for Swift Parrot. This parrot breeds in Tasmania and flies north as far as Brisbane for the cooler winter months. It is accepted that the swift parrot migrates through this region, but the species has not been recorded in the Wadalba South urban release area, yet council's experts continue to say that further clearing in Wadalba will lead to a serious and irreversible impact known as SAII, such that the species is at risk of extinction. Industry just disagrees with this point. On the slide there, Tasmania is the breeding grounds for the swift parrot. The pink is where it is known to occur or likely to occur. As you can see from the pink, it's right up and down the east coast of New South Wales and the bottom end of Queensland and also Victoria. Figure 3, next slide, is an extract of the report to Council in March 2022, which sought to increase the width of the planned green corridor through this urban release area from 30 metres to 40 metres. Landowners and industry did not oppose this corridor as it's a balance between urban development and conservation matters. Figure 4 repeats figure 1, again highlights where an increase in the width of the green corridors as proposed under the strategy has the potential to reduce housing supply by approximately 25 to 30%. That's 300 to 350 lots at a time when this region is already failing to keep behind with the National Housing Accord. Department of Planning targets in urban release areas is about 30 dwellings per hectare, whereas the potential outcome could be closer to 6 dwellings per hectare under this scenario. The draft conservation plan would appear to go against government initiatives seeking to facilitate housing supply. Councillors, we encourage you to support the Central Coast Conservation Plan. We do think it's a good thing, but it will bring about certainty as to what has been a frustrating matter, but we do ask that you consider the devil in the detail, as highlighted in the maps for Wadalba South.
Hey, Chris. Good. All right, thank you. Okay, we're now open for a motion. I have drafted a possible motion, but we'll now need some, we can start with that, I guess. Remember, there's a 7-second delay. So 3 would need to be changed given that the now process for getting it to the council meeting. So 3 could be deleted. Instead, the committee convenes an extraordinary meeting within the next 2 weeks to allow for public presentations to the committee on the draft conservation plan.
Chair, just for comment, how are you going to manage that process? You could end up with 100 people here,
Yep.
All with individual issues.
Yes.
I'm just interested in the best way to manage this.
Well, I think it'd have to be a daytime meeting, and allow some hours. And there'd have to be a registration, obviously, procedure, so that, people can't just turn up. They've got to register and give some, probably a bit like the public forum, give some idea of what they want to talk about.
I could be wrong, Mr. Chair, but I think maybe the fellow councillors may want maybe a couple of speakers that may have some differing views. Maybe not from the perspective from a developer. We've had 2 speakers tonight. We nominate that 2 speakers.
Well, I think I was criticised for not allowing anyone to speak. So,
yeah, I just want to make sure it's fair and we don't get.
Sorry, what are you talking about? We've had 2 speakers on behalf of development. So what else are you talking about?
Well, if we want more speakers.
On behalf of development.
No, I said,
I think Councillor Millen was.
I said the opposite.
Opposite, but we also haven't had anyone from industry, have we?
So, if we open it up to everyone, you could have 100 speakers here, then you could get another 70 developers. Would the best option be, you might be the right person, Councillor Smith, to recommend a couple of organisations and maybe.
Well, I'm not going to do that. I think it does need to be an open process. I think the problem is this committee doesn't have a lot of credibility, so you may not get anybody.
That's fine.
But
Open up then.
after tonight's little arrangement,
Councillor Eaton, Chair, Councillor Walsh has her hand up.
Sure, thank you, Councillor Scuzzler. Yes, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Councillor Eaton. I'm not sure that I heard you being criticised. I just want to make that point. But I did hear that the group that have presented tonight indicated that they would be speaking individually to stakeholder developers and also to other relevant groups, obviously more interested in the issues of biodiversity. And I think with comments I made previously, but also comments that Councillor Smith is making, I think, and also comments Councillor Milland is making, that I think we can frame our motion to or to at least include a minimum of 2 speakers who may, of course, hold different views to the speakers that we've had tonight to do with this. So, yeah. But we've had two developer-based speakers regarding this plan. So let's hear from some other people.
Okay, so do you want to add in, including at least 2?
Well, certainly at least 2, at least equal airtime.
So, like a minimum of 2 environmental organisations.
Yeah.
Okay. Happy to add that in.
Well, I think I need to say too that we obviously there would be an environmental groups, Central Coast based environmental groups, keen to be heard, but not necessarily just environmental groups. I mean, there would be individuals in the community who would like to be heard. So
I agree. Yeah.
And I guess that goes for the, sort of development groups as well.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Director.
Yeah, councillors, if I may make a suggestion. The issue is that there's the public forum at the ordinary meetings. So there's an opportunity there for public to comment about matters that are on the agenda. We don't have the ability to have the public forum as part of the committee. So it is open to the public, but there's no public forum element in the code of meeting practice. But what I've been advised is that you could, before the next environmental planning committee, if you wanted to stage a workshop before that committee that was open to the public, and we could basically have an open forum approach. It would be a workshop. Public would be invited to register to speak. We could run that process. It wouldn't be a formal open forum, but we could run a workshop which allowed the public the opportunity to speak if council wanted. The committee would need to resolve that as an approach tonight, and then get endorsed by council so we could hold that for the next meeting. I'd probably suggest, from trying to get people to meetings, that it would be better to do it probably before the environmental planning committee if you were to hold such a sort of a workshop.
Just was worried it was a bit late in terms of the submission going to that meeting.
Council, I suggest you probably need to have an item on the agenda which gives some information from staff about what the submission is, and then that would be made public, and then people could come along and speak to that in the workshop beforehand. That would be the way to make it transparent.
So sorry, Director, that was in relation to an MP committee meeting.
Yes.
I might suggest further alteration to that, whether following your idea that we schedule a 30-minute public forum prior to the next, in addition to prior to the next council meeting where the draft submission will come, and that perhaps will give the community time to consider their own positions, consider council's position, considering I think we agreed that that was a draft submission, and that there may be the opportunity to do more work on it based on submissions. I think in all reality, I come back to this committee has lost any credibility in terms of their environmental interest or credentials. And I think the separate matter is to discuss the process of having speakers and items on this agenda, which seems to be completely ignorant of the role of this committee in doing anything positive for the environment. But that's a separate matter. So I don't know whether that's a better use of resources to just have additional public forum prior to the next council meeting. And to thoughts.
I don't see how that's going to work, to be honest. I mean, the next council meeting, we don't have the submission. The one after, submissions
Okay.
go on to the council meeting.
Have the draft submission.
It's at the latest.
So I think there's more benefit to having the public forum prior to that than rescheduling this committee, which really does not add a lot of value to consideration of environmental conservation strategies.
Any other thoughts? We haven't got a seconder yet to the interrupted. So I've moved it out of Councillor Welsh's suggestion.
My suggestion, it wasn't supported, so.
We've got to go somewhere though.
So sorry, I'll go back to the director's suggestion then. You were talking about prior to the next Environment and Planning Committee, is that correct?
That was my suggestion. Would be it would be best for us because we'd be set up to be able to hold it with the staff here. So.
Okay, so it doesn't need to be an extraordinary meeting. It
wouldn't be then.
Yeah.
So the committee convenes a public
workshop,
public forum.
It's not called a public forum. A public workshop.
Prior
to the November Environmental Planning Committee. To discuss the draft conservation.
The rest of it's probably around, isn't it?
Yeah, so you can keep the same. Yeah.
The rest of it's probably okay. All right, is there a second for that? Councillor Merlin.
Yep.
Any more discussion?
They're just finishing off.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, no. Can I ask you a quick question?
I'm sorry.
You refuse to answer it.
After the meeting, I'm happy to talk to you. We don't have any.
It's important. How do people?
Sorry, we don't have input from the public outside of within the committee meeting.
I just want to know how people find out about these meetings. That's all I'm asking.
These meetings.
Follow council watch.
It's on the website.
Yeah, midnight last night I found out about it.
It's been on the.
Where?
It's been on the council agenda since Wednesday last week.
Strategic conservation.
Sorry
But we don't all have time to check every day what's on the agenda.
Full stop.
Routine.
Yeah, councillor, let's be up in a second.
Okay, then you need to delete the paragraph before, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. That was seconded by councillor Moreland.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Melbourne Cup Day.
Mhm.
Tuesday, November.
Who cares? Seriously.
There, yep.
I agree, councillor Walsh. People can decide on their priorities, can't they? All right, any more discussion? No, all right. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Eaton, councillor Merlin, councillor Smith, councillor Stanton, councillor Eaton, against, councillor Castles, councillor Walsh. I'll declare the motion carried.
Well done. Move on.
Okay, next item. You're welcome to stay, but I mean, if you've got better things to do, including getting your bets on for the Melbourne Cup, then go ahead.
Yeah, appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you.
The next item is 2.2, the Local Infrastructure Contributions Plan 2024. I'll invite the Director to speak to it briefly.
So, councillors, there's the draft 712 contribution plan, and that's it's a 1% levy plan. It collects contributions from development that's used for public infrastructure. It's been on exhibition. There's been a range of submissions, and we're putting it back to council for adoption. It also involves, you'll see in the plan that there are a few elements, but largely it's a 1% of the value of development, which is an approach to the traditional Section 711 plans, which could be a higher rate. And what it does is it then has a works program similar to contribution plans normally that identifies the works that the funds can be used for, and then it shows for the next sort of, I think it's 5 years, what is in the works program for delivery. That works program gets reviewed each year, so we come back and update it, but it really aligns with the council's long-term capital works plan. The other element to this is that it rescinds a number of the or repeals a number of the old contributions plans that get superseded by this new plan. Manager Strategic Plan, is there anything else you want to add to it?
No, that was a good song.
It is an overview. Yeah.
Okay. I did have a question, and just looking at the work schedule on page. Sorry, is anyone else?
I will have a question, but
I'll come to you next.
Got yours.
Yeah, on the work schedule, which is on page 20, there's about $10 million of the $17 million going to Gosford. And that's nice for Gosford, but it did seem a little out of balance. Now, I understand that there are other contribution plans that maybe sort of paint a different picture, but it'd be nice to sort of see those.
Shannon,
Yeah, so this is one of the contribution plans that council has. So there are other projects happening across the coast. Provide you a list of all the contribution funded projects to the committee. But yes, there is works happening. Yeah, and across some of our other plans as well, not just this one. So this just shows contributions that are collected. Although this plan applies, Central Coast, where council 7 and 11 contribution plans apply for projects out of the plan.
But apart from, so the other ones are basically mostly in the growth areas of the north, correct? So everywhere else, all the money goes to Gosford.
The Peninsula has its own contribution plan.
Right.
As well. It is, the only one in the
And is a driver for this, and I might be wrong, so I hope you'll be corrected. I do occasionally get things wrong. That under the Gosford SEP or something or other, contributions weren't able to be collected for a while. Is that right?
They were, so my understanding is that they were previously 4% of the cost of development. When the former Gosford State Infrastructure Contribution Plan came in 2018, the Department of Planning put them down for 1% for council and 2% for the state government. And then that plan was superseded by the housing and productivity contribution. So now Gosford is similar to the rest of the state.
I was just wondering if this sort of picked up that gap, if you like.
Yeah.
Again, doesn't seem quite fair compared to the rest of the coast.
Yeah, so at the moment it is the same contributions are charged in Gosford as the rest of the coast, but we are looking at options to have the former levy reinstated in Gosford due to the amount of infrastructure that needs to be provided there.
It's almost saying to me that it is an issue about filling in a gap that should have been prepared, should have been done another way. Councillor Castles, you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I note that the 3 contribution plans, the Terrigal, the Buckley and Rimba, at the moment have 11.3 million. I think that's correct, and I'll go through you to the director, sort of, I guess, sitting in there for those 3 districts. So the idea is that this would all be rolled out of there. Is that what this means?
Yes.
Basically.
So what happens is when you repeal a contribution plan, the money goes into the new contribution plan. So it all goes into this 712 plan, and it would be as part of those calculations in the works plan about what funding's available.
Yeah. So just a second question. I'm only using this as an example. So, for example, in Arimba, at the moment we have the Burns Place master plan that's being obviously considered, worked on, whatever we might say. This wouldn't have any impact on the actual, I guess, things that could be going to be constructed there, or anything in terms of the funds that currently are sitting in Arimba. You know, would it have any impact on that in terms of stuff not being able to be done?
Pass that over to Shannon, I think.
No, Councillor Couples, it actually provides more flexibility.
Okay.
The current Burns Park, Dark Street isn't included in the Arimba contribution plan. So
Right.
once we roll it over into here,
Okay.
we'll provide some more flexibility
Okay.
for that. And then once that plan's adopted, we'll be able to consider the works that need to be done in the next review.
Okay.
Contribution plan.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Any further questions? Councillor McGregor?
Yeah. Further to the points that Councillor Eaton was making around the allocation of the funding, obviously we're moving away from localised plans into a more broader general one. What kind of guarantees do we have that these areas which are not having these plans anymore are actually going to get the level of service or level of infrastructure that they had previously in the plans? Or if it's going to be a lower amount or a higher amount? How are we planning on communicating this with Budgie, Rimba, and I think it's Terrigal, it's the 3, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll ask Shannon to.
Yeah, all of the plans that are due to be repealed haven't been amended for some time, and generally in them, the projects, a lot of them aren't fit for purpose anymore, or they actually don't include specific projects. Like they might collect funds for open space, but there isn't actually specific projects listed in all of them. So moving those funds and projects in 12 plans allows for projects to be prioritised in the council's annual budget and operational plan process, and aligned through that. Whereas at the moment, for some of those older plans, they're still collecting funds, but they're not.
All right. Was it 18 submissions in the consultation? 13, sorry. Were they from the areas that were affected in terms of the areas that are losing their sectional 711s, or were they from other areas on the coast?
Other areas we didn't have submissions. about people losing their contribution plans.
No, I mean, like, of the 13, were there any from Arimba, Budgie, or Terrigal, or were they from other suburbs?
I'm not sure.
And did we do any work on communicating to the people in the areas that the former plans covered around consultation?
So what's been explained is that those contribution plans were collecting money but didn't have works, and council couldn't deliver.
So if you lived in Arimba, how did you know that this was happening or it was going to affect you? Is the question in its most simplest form.
I don't know the answer to that. It's on exhibition, but the bigger point is that by moving it into a 7/12 contribution plan, you've moved the funding that was in contribution plans that didn't have works into a plan that we can actually deliver. And what will happen, you'd see the works program at the back of it. There's a lot more flexibility on how council can use the funds to support its works program. So that's really the focus of moving into the 7/12. There'll be an update, Shannon, every year, which will be council will then review what works each year those 7/12 funds are going towards, and that'll be up to council to decide what those projects are. We've aligned it with council's works program as it's happening at the moment, so that funding from this is going towards delivering works that council has put in its works program, so it's in the pipeline. But there's obviously a chance for that to change mix over time and for council to focus it on different areas.
Yeah, I fully understand the theory behind it. I've read the report. I've been through another one of these meetings where we've had the presentation. Like, I understand the idea behind it. I'm more concerned about the community. They actually know what's going on, which is a point that was even raised by people in the audience gallery today. I get that we have a formal consultation process and it goes on the website. There might be notice in the paper, et cetera, but this is going to be making significant changes for people in those suburbs. And like Councillor Eden said, the split of the funding raises some questions in the community. And the other point I'd make is that the councillors themselves are 15 people. They are not the entire community of 350,000 people. So whilst it's great that councillors may have some line of sight, or some councillors may have some line of sight over an operational plan in its formulation, that's not the community. When it comes to consultation over what the infrastructure needs, what the individual projects are, we haven't really captured that for the 350,000 people with working our way forward through this. So that's not really been responded to. So the following up from this, the other one I'm interested in is what generated the change here? Was there some sort of comparisons with other councils? Are they moving towards 7/12? Is there more of a directive from DPI on this? Is this something that's been generated internally, necessitated through external factors and forces?
Sure. Thank you, Ansel.
Yeah, we've been going through at amalgamation. Council had 54 contribution plans, which there might be 5 or 6 different buckets of money in every single one of those plans, and all those plans had, small buckets, and we can't spend the money. So the best way to deliver community infrastructure is we've been going through looking at the old plans, consolidating where we can into the 7/12 plan. It's a starting point to allow the funds actually to be spent and better prioritised infrastructure, and as the fastest way of making that happen too. And then in areas where, for instance, the Peninsula is one of the places we're looking at, or Warnervale's under review. Got a lot of growth happening. We will likely maintain our 7/11 plans in those, but the areas where there is less growth and we're collecting less contributions annually, we've rolled those into our 7/12 to allow us more flexibility in delivering infrastructure where it's needed and having one pot of money instead of potentially, 100 of small pots of money, so we can actually get it spent and get infrastructure delivered in our communities.
So also answer with it's an approach that the 7/12 plans were set up because councils were having trouble spending 7/11 contributions because they were very tightly targeted between the nexus for between the development and the nexus for the works. And what that meant was in reality that you were collecting a little bit of the demand for the infrastructure, of which councils then to have the rest of the works. So when Shannon's talking about you weren't able to spend the money, we were basically unable to fund the rest of the balance of those type of works. So moving into the 7-12 plan, there's no nexus requirements, and that means actually council's free to collect the 1%. It's quite a low rate from a contributions point of view, but also then there's more flexibility in how council then spends it, and it can spend 100% without demonstrating that it's tied back to the development. So a lot of councils in established areas do it. So in Sydney, for example, and they do it because they basically have it as a contribution to the overall works program, and that's largely what's been done here over the last sort of 6 months or so.
Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Director Nichols. Have I just, and also in response to the kinds of questions that Councillor McGregor and previously Councillor Castles asked, am I hearing an answer there to whether the areas of Terrigal, Budgeroy and Arimba? So you've mentioned a number of times about the increased flexibility under the 712. Does that mean that Arimba, Budgeroy and Terrigal are going to get responded to in terms of those previous requirements that they were interested in achieving? Like I'm not given that we're moving this. Sorry to jump in there, but given that we're moving those previous contribution plans over under the 711 over into the 712, and we're hearing that it provides council with so much more flexibility, even though the developer contributions are quite low, as you just mentioned. I still actually haven't heard if Arimba, Budgeroy and Terrigal are actually going to get responded to, given they were already on the books, asking for a response. Yeah.
Sure. Councillor, the answer to that would be that when you're agreeing to the contribution plan, you're also agreeing to the attachment that says here's what the works will do. So in that back where you can actually see where the types of activities that can be funded by the contribution. And you can see that it sort of identifies a whole range of types of council activities and where those would be. That's up to council to decide. We put on exhibition, we responded to what people's comments were, and we updated the plan of what the works would be done for. But it also stressed that each year that's something council can review as well. At the moment, it's very much aligned with council's capital works program, so that it contributes towards that. And that's mainly because those works often take a number of years to move along the pipeline to actually being able to be delivered. So works that we're identifying in the next 5 years sort of likely have thought about and have started to be planned, and then actually move through design so it can move to construction. So that's why a lot of these works are ones that were already in the pipeline. But it doesn't mean that over time council can't change the distribution of where those works are focused and add works that could be for Rimba or Budgeroy or whatever as the focus changes. It's up to council to decide that works program.
Councillor Mellon.
To you, Mr. Director. So I agree with the other speakers because the red flag is the Gosford figures, right? Anyone that's north of Gosford is going to say, once again, there's a big portion of this pool of funding going back into Gosford and other areas are missing out. Is there any way we can allocate the funding proportionally based on where that money was collected? So Budgeroy contributed 23%, for example. Could 23% of that funding be quarantined, isolated for spend in that region or that area of our region?
Shannon, do we know where do we have a breakdown of where the funds were
I don't have one tonight, but we could get one.
Yeah, we can take that on notice for councils if you wanted to know that.
Yeah, we're going to get asked that in the community. These buildings went up, we were promised they would go in local infrastructure. Once again, Gosford's in trouble, there's all this big spend. and other regional town centres get left behind. So I'd feel a lot more comfortable. I think a lot of other councillors would appreciate getting a better understanding of that proportional investment and what that proportional spend may be done. Because I know we've got some figures there, but I don't know what percentage of the regional shared pathway and footpath programs dedicated to the north.
So is there maybe an opportunity, instead of having one 7-12 plan across the whole area, having two 7-12 plans that, or three, whatever it is, not down to the suburb level, because I understand that that doesn't generate sufficient dollars to actually do works, but it, just that sense of, all the money being pooled and going anywhere across the whole. And look, I know it's not quite like that, but just that sense of accountability a bit more for people. Is that an option that would address some of those concerns and would be workable, or is that something that staff might consider?
I mean, we'd like to get to the point where there's more detailed plans for town centres, and that you could actually have a plan for what the growth infrastructure in each of the town centres would need to be, and that then gets funded through development contributions, particularly when a lot of the growth is occurring around town centres. So we're not at the point to be able to do that yet, but we'd like to be able to do that. And if you've got then more specific plans for the growth infrastructure around town centres, you can start to look at whether it should be a greater than 1% contribution as well, because you're actually being much more specific. At the moment, we don't have that type of work, so we have to be quite broad. But as our planning program goes, we should be trying to get much more specific plans for what this infrastructure should be.
But would it not be possible to even break this 7-12 plan into two 7-12 plans that looked at the north versus and the south?
Council, I mean, there's still plans in the north, primarily around the growth areas, which actually are 7-11 plans. And what you do is when you're in a growth area, because the infrastructure costs are quite high, you're actually collecting a significant amount more, but you need to then demonstrate the need for that infrastructure. So those 7-11 plans still exist. So there is lots of works that are happening in the northern that are funded by contributions, just not by this sort of low rate plan. This is much more about established areas. And because it's been more about established areas, the contributions, while we don't have the figures here, they're largely in areas where they've seen a lot of unit development and medium density development. So the funds would have actually come from areas like around the entrance or in Gosford, where you're actually having contributions because the redevelopment's occurring. So that's why, in some ways, the works are sort of around those areas. You can have multiple 7-12 plans, but you're better off having one 7-12 plan of which you get more specific about different areas, what you want to deliver. But we're not at that point yet that we have that information.
There's a recommendation from the staff. Possibly we could add a 5 to that, asking for a further report that addresses some of the issues that have been raised tonight.
Could I ask a couple of other quick questions with your indulgence? And we're working, is planning and finance working together on this? And what about the implications for the sort of medium to longer term financial plan? Because I can think back a few years ago and there was some talk of there being roughly, I think it was $400+ million that was in different reserves due to the funding plans, but they couldn't really realise the amount that was required for each individual project. Example being the Warnervale Leisure Centre, council's got, say, 30% of it. They need state and federal funding to do it, et cetera, et cetera. So have you been working with finance on that sort of medium to longer term, how that's going to impact the finances? Because if it comes to how we're going to fund things, surely this would have a pretty significant impact on our capital works delivery if it's going to free up a whole lot of extra capital.
So, I mean, the answer is yes. So this has been worked through with finance, but the way to think about what's actually being done is that this is actually cross-subsidising the capital works program, and that's been assumed already. So the works that you're seeing in this plan are ones that are already capital works that council's proceeding with, and this is actually part of the funding mix for how those would occur. So there's some room to move around, but the long-term financial plan assumes this income is funding a broader range of capital works like we've proposed.
So when would we review it? Because the long-term financial plan is a 10-year plan that was adopted in 2021. But that's already 4 years ago. We're talking about 4 years, 5 years worth of like what's being planned out now. Wouldn't that be at the point we'd need a new set of financial plans?
Shannon, I'm not sure where the cycle is with a long-term financial plan.
I think we update it every year, don't we?
I think they review it pretty regularly, but I'm pretty sure it's a 10-year plan, isn't it, for the long?
Yes, but I think it's a rolling 10-year plan.
Adopted in July.
I mean, we could actually, I believe, change the works next year, for instance.
We could probably answer one on the long-term financial plan, but it is definitely the intention that each year when council's adopting what capital works are happening that year, you can modify this 7/12 plan at the same time.
To add the extra year every year, so it keeps rolling. And yes, Church Nichols said this will come back, and it's intended will come back with the draft operational plan each year, and then so they hope that each year will be together.
And just one last one, in terms of what was existing before, did we do any work on, say, most of these plans have got maybe 20% of what they need in terms of what they've allocated for this infrastructure, or did we find that some of them were exceeding the amount that they needed in terms of contributions? Was there any trends or anything that we noticed that we should be aware of?
Particular trends. A lot of these plans that are getting reviewed haven't been reviewed. Interior plans. Some of the projects in our role, a lot of them have been delivered over the years from a variety of. So, repealing those ones allows us to update the structuring them through the 7/12 plan. But there is, we do, I guess, like through the last review of the Warnervale plan, we definitely went and checked that we were on track and the projections for income and what was left from subdivision point of view. So we definitely look at that for the 7/11 plan, and then the 7/12 plan provides more for that while the operational plan each year.
Did we have any community consultation on the 7/12 plan? Or is that something that was historical, or has?
As in, is this the first one we've had, or?
I'm just curious because obviously if we're seeking to repeal or move on from along the 7/11s and we're moving into the 7/12, in terms of what's in the 7/12, when did it do community consultation? If it did, if it hasn't, is there any ability for there to be community consultation over it so the community can have consultation? Obviously, they've had some in the process of taking these three into the 7/12. But that's what I'm curious about. If we're going to go to this model where it's all going into there, has there been consultation or will there be further consultation on the 7/12?
Yes, each year we do an amendment to it. Consultation is undertaken, and second time, possibly the third, actually, that we've repealed a plan as part of an amendment to 7/12, and there's been consultation each time.
Okay, the recommendation is there. With that, do you want to add a 6?
No, I'll propose 6.
Yes.
It's
going to be moved by Councillor Merland.
Yeah, thank you. And with the addition of 6, a report is provided to the committee, providing information on the percentages of each of the previous contribution plans compared to the potential spend of the capital works. That's already been committed.
Are you looking to have that before this goes to council?
Well, if the capital works are already committed, that should be an easy process. And if we're already combining the 4 plans, I'll ask the director, could that information come back?
So councillors would want that just to be distributed. Is that what you're wanting? Yeah. I don't think it's very difficult to do. So we could distribute that information after tonight.
It's probably not that urgent. We could defer this report if that's the view of the committee. Director, through you, Shannon, is there any real urgency in doing this meeting? There is, by the sound of it. Okay, all right, well, that answers that question anyway.
But yes, there is
There is some
I
urgency.
think there is some because it's funding works that's been delivered this financial year. So,
I'm just trying to avoid about the matter, so,
Well, I think we're probably going to get that.
if it goes up, current state.
So rather than adopt it, if there's hesitation, can we just refer it to the next council meeting for consideration?
Well,
And still get that same information, and so that it still goes to the next meeting, but it gives panel members and also other councillors have an opportunity to look at that information, consider it more fully.
well, I think the motion's got to say that the committee recommends anyhow. So it still comes to the next, to the council meeting floor.
Sure.
Isn't, who's the expert on these things? Isn't that right? The committee can only recommend, can't it?
Recommends to council for consideration. Well, look, I'm fine with what you want, but I just get the feeling that a number of us probably aren't comfortable adopting it, recommend adoption at this point until we've got a little bit more information.
Yeah.
just councillor, councillors, if that's your position, I just defer it and we'll bring it back to the next meeting with the additional information and then you can consider it again next.
So just through you, Chair, so to Director Nichols, so at this point, I'm guessing that perhaps the original plan had been for this to actually go to the next council meeting, right? Or not?
Well, whatever happens, it will.
No, I'm just asking what the thinking was for it. But we're actually now looking, aren't we, at doing a deferral to bring this back, as long as it gets up, obviously, to this committee. Is that what we're doing? Okay.
With the additional.
Yeah. Want to be clear what we're up to.
No, that's not what the motion says.
No, but that's the proposal.
Yes.
If councillors,
So we need, it wasn't seconded, so the motion just now becomes that this matter be deferred to the next committee meeting and then the report.
Yeah.
so can I, so just for me to clarify, the number one would be defer the report for the next committee meeting.
Yeah.
But you'd still have 5
Which becomes
the
two.
report includes or something like that, because then we'll change the report as it comes back to you. Thank you.
It's a defer bit.
We've got to wait for it to come.
Yeah, that's right.
The time delay.
Sorry, I'm getting, I'm
She'll be call with this next week.
getting into
Councils.
that must be.
It's only 2025.
While we're waiting, so Councillor Millen moved that. Who's the seconder? Who wants to second it? Councillor Smith, thank you. Oh, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Walsh.
Councillor.
Councillor Walsh, who's going to second?
Sorry, confused.
Oh, okay. Well, we're now deferring it.
Are we deferring this to
Yes.
the next EMP
Yes.
meeting
Yes.
with the report to come to that? So
Yes,
then it would go to the following,
that's correct.
to the ordinary council meeting that follows the next EMP meeting.
Yes, that's correct. Although, of course, these minutes go to the council meeting this month and the council court meeting
Where
could.
we can decide to accept or not on deferment. Okay.
So councillors, there'll be one coming up in a second, which will be what we said a minute ago.
Just a quick question. If I'm correct, the table that you referred to earlier, it's got the financial year when the works are scheduled, but it doesn't have the quarter. So do we have the information around whether any of these are going to be affected this quarter by this deferral, or do we not know that yet?
Oh, I mean, no, I mean, it's not that urgent.
Not that. Okay, that's, I thought I would ask the question.
It is urgent that we do it this financial year. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
And if there's going to be dramatic change, we want to know as soon as
We've
possible.
got plenty of time.
Yeah, no, a month is not a problem.
So
I think something was coming up.
It doesn't have a copy and paste function, so we're just kind of working around how without having to retype the whole thing for you.
You.
The Central Coast Film Production Precinct. So that report. That is some.
It's going to. Oh, okay.
Hang on.
Yeah, I did see
Next, just running.
Shows no different grid. Yeah, but it's important to know what that looking at.
Yeah, you go pay right.
Not only is that he doesn't have his own kids.
No, sorry.
He's like pretty positive anyway. Like,
Go, there's a couple more.
I thought it was going to be
I
like
mean, without that, you don't know what.
No, it's fine. You look after it on our behalf. It would be-
When the video that wasn't against it.
no. Yeah, no, you know, I think that may have box because
From the district again. Yeah, no, I won't.
Oh, you're not making a run for it, are you? You're not making a run for it, are you?
She, as a non-voting member, she's.
Would you just criticise him? Councillor McNamara.
Really?
I've seen the most important.
So I think the rest of things, the rest of it shouldn't take long.
We're there. Okay.
Halfway home,
Well
but.
done.
That's it there now, councillors.
I'm happy to move.
Now? No.
I've still got to say that
Yes.
the committee recommends to council.
Yeah, we'll add all that.
That's okay. I'm not too worried about that. All right. So that was moved by Councillor Milne, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any more discussion, debate? Well, all right. I'll put it all those in favour. Please raise your hand.
Were you,
You
Sharon?
supporting that, Councillor Walsh? That's the deferral.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Unanimous.
So sorry, deferral, yes.
Yes, okay, that's unanimous then. Thank you. Okay, next item is the significant applications. Recommendations pretty straightforward with the report. Questions, councillors? I've got some, but I'll wait to see if there's anyone else.
No, I'm good.
I have just one.
Yes.
Okay. It's just in relation to SD's the Mingara one anyway, SSD 634, whatever it is on there.
Yep.
And having had a bit of a look through some of the included documentation by clicking on the link, you can see that there are still a lot of concerns regarding particularly parking, but there are quite a lot of other concerns as well being raised. I suppose my question for you, Chair, to Lecturer is, what other opportunities does council have, or I know other agencies as well, to actually make any further submissions on this matter, or how does that work from this point on, with not going into too much detail?
Made the submission. The Department of Planning consider that submission when they assess the application, and we're just like a submitter
Okay.
outside, so we're not involved in that.
No, so that's basically the role, isn't it, in these situations?
Yeah.
We submit just like another agency may submit, you know, their stuff as well or whatever.
Yes, that'd be it, and that gets all then considered when they determine the application.
Councillor Passes, I think there's a role for this committee if we wish to take it up in either agreeing or not agreeing or adding further comments to the council submission, and I certainly would
It
be
was pretty comprehensive, but
in support of actually.
strong wording.
Yes, definitely.
But I would be suggesting that we do further submission effectively from the committee saying that we support the council's submission both on that one and on the Māori school in terms of those issues.
Thanks, Councillor Eaton.
So my questions are, what about the ones that I suppose, well, put it another way. When do we make submissions? And so there's some here that I guess are older. So some Phillips Christian College, which just says response to submissions. Not that I personally have an issue in that. In fact, I think in general it would look something that is badly needed. But you've also got the Kia battery. It doesn't appear that we made a submission on, and to me that seemed that it was quite, I wasn't convinced that it was an appropriate land for it, and there's nothing about whether we can or can't make a submission on that. And also so that's Kia batteries energy storage system, which the comment is prepare EIS. And the other one, the West Gosford Resource Recovery Facility expansion, which is a very large expansion of a waste processing plant in West Gosford that I'm not convinced, again, the land is suitable for such a large facility with the transport issues in that area. And again, preparing EIS. So I don't know, Director, if you can help me or the staff can help, when is it that we're able to put a submission in or we vote?
Well, how we do it this way? If the committee wanted to resolve to prepare a submission, just identify the ones you'd like us to prepare for submission to, and we'll find out with the right spot to do it. I mean, things like, unless in a lot of the things we're preparing CEs, that's information that would be able to be a submission. When they're preparing an EIS, we could put in a submission. So there's a lot of opportunity to put in the submission. Each one would be different.
Right. Well, rather than do it now, because everyone would want to have a look at those issues, could we have the process explained a bit further in the next council meeting, committee meeting, as to when it is appropriate to put in submission, and a bit of a quick report on those two.
Would you just let me know which for those two?
Which is Kia battery energy storage system and West Gosford Resource Recovery Facility expansion. And in terms of the recommendation, is the committee happy to add it to that we, the council advises the department that it fully supports the council's existing submission on senior housing and the the Māori school anyhow.
Chair, if we go right a submission, I'll declare an interest. I know the CEO and the chair of the organisation, so.
Not let me go on, yeah. Okay.
Chair, can I just ask some thought be given to whether there is a need for us to do that? And my thinking is, like, we haven't got the results of the Heritage Workshop back. We haven't got any of the subcommittees coming back to us. And yet staff have done what I think are good submissions. We're going to recommend to council that we put in an additional submission, which may well open up speakers and a level of debate on those items. Now, that's fine, and I don't want to shut it down. I'm just saying it's now this time and we haven't really got to a whole lot of stuff that this committee should be considering. I'm just wondering whether we're creating work that we don't need to create for both ourselves and staff and the council when we're not getting to other stuff. And although we had the conservation plan tonight, we don't have a lot of good meaty environmental stuff or subcommittees reporting back to us at this point. So just for consideration, I'm not disagreeing with the intent. I'm just questioning the wisdom of generating this work, if it's necessary.
I just don't think it's very much work at all, because what we're saying is we agree with the staff.
Well, yeah, sure. That's fine. Like I said, I don't disagree with the intent. I'm just sure of the
Got to be brought up
value.
at the meeting anyhow. So anyhow, I moved it. Is there a second?
Sorry, we didn't catch the full.
I was just trying to find the one. What's it called? Actually, sorry, something Eileen O'Connor or something or other.
Eileen O'Connor. Is it the one in the Catholic school?
Yes, yes.
Marty.
Yes, Eileen O'Connor School. Yes. The Councillor Castle, you seconding that?
Hang on, where are we? What does that mean? Exercising.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's not for. So you're right. I think it should be existing.
Oh, right.
So it should really say the.
For this one here, existing doesn't work ever.
That the committee, the council, right?
That the committee.
Committee, council right to.
Advising that it fully supports.
Because we're just saying we're supporting the council's submission.
Yes.
Councillor Eden.
The council submission.
Letter to say at this meeting on this date.
Put a letter, council. It says council.
Yeah.
Well,
It's really not much work. But I just think it adds a bit more weight. That's the best way to
Declare an interest in just this man.
Bronnie, if declare an interest, just declare.
You can declare that in here, and we can notice in a minute.
It goes on this.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. You're just in a motion. In item 2.3.
And I'll wait. Doing.
Personal relationship.
God.
Okay, Councillor Castles.
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. Second by Councillor Castle.
Fine with that.
Any more further discussion? If not, all right, I'll put it all those in favour. Well, and declaring the interest.
That's right, you did. Yeah.
Okay, next one is the DA. Yes. DA statistics 2.4. The motions, recommendations there to receive the report.
A bit more. Sorry,
You're moving it, Councillor Millen, with a question?
I will move it, and just a quick question about the Olympic. It's like we're starting to move up a little bit. Outstanding DAs.
Is there a seconder while we're doing that? On receiving the report.
Do you say again? I wasn't.
Oh, sorry.
I wasn't listening to you.
No, it's fine. I was hoping to move.
Oh, there we are, Councillor Stanton, thank you.
Councillor Stanton.
Gonna say it's only receiving
the move the report. Just a question here. I'd like some more explanation. We seem like we're creeping up again in the wrong direction.
Yeah, there was a massive burst at the first month of the year, And then that went in the second month was well above the amount. So there was significant delays in the system. So the process after, but there was no
more time in there.
Yeah, so we think that will go down over the next couple of months.
We've got September figures.
You'll get September figures sort of about but it takes a couple of after the end of the month to get the figures.
Is that because of the portal?
Yeah, because you've got to get them out of the portal and things like that.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All right, I'll put that all as in favour. Unanimously, thank you. And the final item is the.
Leave the room, councillor.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, you go home.
You've got to go.
Come back here.
Councillor Smith, you don't have to come back if you don't wish to. Well, there is no other items, I can tell you that.
Right,
Councillor
enjoy.
Smith.
Good night.
Have a good debate on that last item.
Yes.
All right, so the report's there, the recommendation's there. So we want to move the recommendations again just to receive the report. Thank you, Councillor Merlin.
I'm
Castle, thank you. Is there any questions?
Are we there yet? A question?
Almost there. Hang on.
What? So I was just going to ask about the red bus depot at Baddow Bay.
Yeah.
So it's been withdrawn. Then they're going to relodge. What's the advantage of doing that?
We sought an extension of time to the gateway determination and the Department of Planning said no.
Oh, okay.
So there is some, outstanding issues around drainage and things that they'll hopefully sort soon and I'll be able to, relodge it.
All right, and then Old Sydney Town, are we getting close on that?
Yeah, we have another meeting. They've submitted the rest of the outstanding information this month.
It'd be nice to get it off the books or get it moving. Any idea? I mean, without, I know it's subject to meetings and stuff like that, but any like months, you think now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, moved and seconded. We've got that. All right, all those in favour? Very unanimously, thank you. And I'll declare the meeting closed and the next meeting is we discussed on Melbourne Cup Day, which is the 4th, but I might be wrong on the date, at 7 o'clock.
Which is well after the Melbourne Cup.
Yes.